Every experience you live is born from a single seed, the image you hold in the theater of your mind. The outer world does not move until the inner one is formed. Nothing comes to you by chance. Everything is summoned by the silent conviction that already exists within you. When I desire something, I never chase it in the physical world. I turn inward, for that is where creation begins. I begin by quieting my thoughts. The noise of doubt, fear, and urgency fades, and I enter that still place where imagination rules. There, I feel what it would be like if the desire were already fulfilled. I don't ask for it, I live it in feeling. I see myself already in possession of the thing, already in the state I long for. I make that feeling so real that it becomes more vivid than the facts of the world around me. It's not about forcing the mind or struggling to believe. It's about surrendering to the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes natural. I let the scene play once in my imagination, not as a wish, but as an experience. I hear the words that would be spoken if it were true. I see the details of that moment. And most importantly, I feel the emotion of satisfaction. That feeling is the key. The feeling is the secret doorway through which the unseen becomes seen. When I rise from that inner state, I do not return to the old version of myself. I carry that new feeling as if it were already fact. I walk, speak, and think from that state, not toward it. I do not look for signs or evidence, because the world must conform to the truth that I now embody. Everything and everyone begin to rearrange themselves to mirror the reality I accepted within. There are no limits except those I set by disbelief. Every time I waver, I remind myself consciousness creates. The world is a mirror, not a maker. If I hold a new image faithfully, it must appear. Time is not delay. It is the gentle unfolding of what I have already accepted. The moment I assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, creation is complete. The outer world simply catches up. So when I manifest, I do not beg, I do not wait. I become. I live as though it is already done, and soon the world echoes back that inner truth. This is how I manifest anything, by feeling it real, by dwelling in its fulfillment, and by knowing that imagination, once accepted as reality, will always harden into fact. Everything begins and ends within the imagination. The outer world is nothing but a reflection, a mirror of your inner assumptions and beliefs. The things you call coincidences are simply the shadows of your dominant thoughts taking form in time. When I say I can manifest anything, I am not speaking of luck or chance. I am speaking of understanding the laws of consciousness, the divine process by which thought becomes flesh. The only creative power in existence is awareness. Your awareness. What you are aware of being, you become. When I decide upon a desire, I do not approach it as something distant, something to chase. I treat it as something already existing in an unseen dimension. There is no separation between what I want and what I am. The only barrier is belief. Desire is not a call to action. It is an invitation to alignment. The feeling of desire itself is proof that what I want is already possible. So I turn within, and I begin the sacred act of imagining. I close my eyes and allow the outer world to fade away. I let go of the noise, the evidence, the opinions, the so-called facts that contradict what I want. I silence the senses and awaken the inner eye. I choose a scene that would take place if my wish were already fulfilled. It must be simple, short, and full of feeling. Perhaps a friend congratulating me, perhaps me walking through the door of a new home, perhaps seeing my name written where it never was before. The scene must be vivid and alive, not as a movie I watch, but as an experience I live. In that moment, I am not the one imagining, I am the one being. I move my awareness into the scene until it feels natural. I touch, I hear, I smell, I feel the emotion of completion. I hear the voice saying, "Congratulations," and I respond with gratitude as though it were true. That feeling of "it is done" is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. I do not try to figure out how it will happen, because the hope, belongs to a level of mind that is limited. The imagination works in ways beyond logic, arranging circumstances, people, and events with infinite intelligence. When I wake from that inner act, I return to my day knowing something has shifted. The world has not yet changed, but my consciousness has. That inner acceptance is the seed planted. I no longer ask if it will happen, I know it must. I go about my life with quiet confidence, refusing to contradict my assumption by doubting or complaining. When old thoughts arise that say, it's not working, I gently remind myself, creation is finished. I have already done it within. I let time reveal what eternity has already created. There is a difference between hoping and assuming. Hope keeps the desire in the future, while assumption brings it into the present. Hope says, maybe one day, but assumption says, I am that now. This shift in feeling is the entire secret. When I assume, I cease to struggle, I cease to search. I live in the end, and the end always finds its expression in form. Everything that exists around you today, the clothes you wear, the house you live in, the people in your life, was once a thought, an idea, an unseen reality. The same process that brought you this present moment will bring you every other desire if you use it consciously. The imagination is not a fantasy. It is the workshop of creation. Every invention, every work of art, every revolution began in the unseen. To deny its power is to deny life itself. There are no exceptions to this law. Whether you believe in it or not, it is always working. The difference is that most people create unconsciously. They imagine fears, limitations, and doubts more vividly than their dreams, and then they wonder why life repeats the same story. To manifest consciously, you must govern your imagination with discipline and love. You must choose deliberately what inner state you will dwell in. I remind myself daily that imagination and reality are one continuous motion. The outer follows the inner as surely as night follows day. I can no more separate imagination from manifestation than I can separate cause from effect. Whenever I notice something unwanted in my life, I trace it back to the assumption that gave it birth. Then I replace it not by fighting it, but by assuming the opposite state. If I feel lack, I don't try to attract abundance, I embody abundance. I feel the relief and gratitude of already having what I need. If I feel loneliness, I don't search for someone to complete me. I assume the feeling of being deeply loved, and love inevitably appears. The world must mirror the state I dwell in. It cannot do otherwise, for it is law. The key is persistence, not effort, but persistence in belief. I must return again and again to that inner state until it becomes natural. The moment it feels natural, it is done. Nature works through the path of least resistance, and the same is true for imagination. When something feels natural, there is no more resistance, and manifestation flows effortlessly. Sometimes people say, I've imagined, but nothing happened. The truth is, something always happens. The outer world rearranges itself according to your dominant feeling. If you imagine abundance but still live in the feeling of lack, the lack persists. You cannot deceive the law of consciousness. You may speak words of faith, but if your inner tone is fear, that fear is what you project. The law does not respond to words, it responds to feeling. So I make feeling my guide. I practice gratitude not as a ritual, but as a state of being. I give thanks before the evidence appears because I know gratitude is the language of fulfillment. I celebrate the unseen as if it were visible, and by doing so, I draw it closer. Faith is not pretending, it is knowing. It is walking as though you already are what you desire to be. Each night before I sleep, I enter that sacred space again. The mind between waking and sleep is fertile ground for creation. I repeat my scene gently, not with effort, but with ease, until it feels real. Then I drift into sleep while still immersed in that feeling. When I wake, I carry the residue of that inner experience with me. That feeling becomes my new vibration, my new state of being, and the world aligns accordingly. It does not matter how impossible something seems. The outer world is clay, and consciousness is the sculptor. What appears unchangeable bends before sustained imagination. The only question is, will I remain faithful to the end I have imagined, or will I be persuaded by appearances? Appearances are nothing but old assumptions still echoing. To dwell on them is to recreate them. So I withdraw my attention and feed only the vision I choose. Attention is the currency of creation. Whatever I attend to expands. If I keep my attention on what I lack, I give it life. If I fix my attention on fulfillment, I breathe life into that. This is not denial of reality, it is mastery of it. I choose the state I wish to experience, and the world obediently reshapes itself to that choice. When you understand this, you realize there is no competition, no struggle, no external enemy. There is only consciousness expressing itself. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are the author of it. Every experience is a reflection of who you have accepted yourself to be. Change that acceptance, and everything changes. There are moments when the old self tries to rise again. Old doubts, old fears, old reactions. When that happens, I do not fight them. I simply observe and remind myself, this is the shadow of a past assumption. It has no power unless I give it attention. I return to the feeling of fulfillment, and the shadow dissolves. Life begins to feel effortless when you live from the end. You stop forcing, you stop controlling, you start flowing. People and opportunities show up in perfect timing because they are drawn by the vibration you emit. You become magnetized to your own inner state. Manifestation is not about getting things, it is about becoming the version of yourself who already has them. I live by this truth. Consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is an echo. The more I internalize this, the freer I become. I do not react to the world, I create through it. I understand that imagination is not daydreaming. It is destiny shaping itself through thought. I am not trying to make things happen. I am allowing the unseen to express itself. The greatest power lies in detachment. Once I have imagined and felt it real, I release it. I do not cling, I do not worry, I do not ask when. I trust that the law is perfect and self-fulfilling. The moment of release is the moment of faith. I let the world bring it to me in the best and most natural way. It may come through paths I never expected, but it always comes. Every manifestation I have ever experienced began as a faint idea, whisper, a flicker in the mind. Yet, by feeling it real, I watched it grow into fact. I've seen doors open where there were walls, people appear at the right time, and opportunities unfold with such precision that only imagination could have arranged them. This is not magic, it is law. To live consciously is to live deliberately. Each thought is a seed, and each feeling is the water that nourishes it. Most people scatter seeds of fear and expectation without awareness, and then they wonder why weeds grow. But when you plant with purpose, you harvest with joy. I choose every day to plant thoughts of love, abundance, and success. I feel their reality now, and life never fails to mirror it. The secret is constancy. The world may take time to reflect your inner change, but the reflection must come. Patience is faith stretched across time. I remind myself that delay is not denial, it is gestation. Just as a seed takes time to bloom, so too does an assumption take time to crystallize. I rest in that knowing, confident that what I have accepted within must express itself without. I do not measure progress by outer signs. The only sign I need is the inner feeling of naturalness. If it feels natural to have it, then it is already mine. I persist in that knowing until it becomes ordinary. And when it becomes ordinary, the world calls it extraordinary. This is how I live. This is how I manifest. I dwell in the unseen until it becomes seen. I walk in faith not by sight, because sight is merely the echo of yesterday's belief. The unseen is the womb of creation, and an imagination is the act of conception. When I feel it real, I have already created it. When I persist in that feeling, I inevitably live it. All things are possible to the one who imagines rightly. Every desire is a message from the deeper self, urging you to expand into greater expression. You do not need permission, validation, or proof. You need only the courage to feel it real. The moment you do, the universe begins to conspire in your favor. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. And so, I manifest anything, not by force, not by struggle, but by assumption, by inner conviction, by unwavering faith that imagination creates reality. Everything I am, everything I have, everything I will ever experience begins within me. There is no power outside of consciousness. The world is my mirror, my reflection, my masterpiece. And I, the dreamer within, am its eternal creator. The truth is simple yet infinitely powerful. You are not here to beg from life. You are here to command it through the power of your own consciousness. Every desire that stirs within you is not a signal of lack, but a divine reminder of what already belongs to you in another dimension. The moment you dare to feel it real, the unseen begins to move. You are not waiting for the world to change. The world is waiting for you to assume. Creation responds only to certainty, and certainty is born from imagination. So close your eyes, enter that sacred space within, and live the end as though it were now. When you awaken from that state, walk through the world as its master, not its servant. Because the day you truly realize that imagination creates reality, you will never doubt your power again. You will know that the universe itself is shaped by the feeling you dare to believe.